I am Dr. Kathleen Walls.
And I'm Christopher VENEY.
And you are watching Dr. Walls and Friends on UCCN
TV.
All right now.
Where is my passion, purpose? Where can I find it? Where is my passion, purpose? Where can I find it? Where is my passion, purpose? Where can I find it? Dr. Walls and Friends, where I find it. Dr. Walls and Friends. Dr. Walls and Friends, where I find it. Dr. Walls and Friends. I find passion, purpose, inspiration too. At Dr. Walls and Friends, where I find it. Dr. Walls and Friends. Dr. Walls and Friends, where I find it. Dr. Walls and Friends. Dr. Walls.
Welcome to Dr. Walls and Friends. I am your host, Dr. Kathleen Walls, and we are here with friend to the show, Mr. Christopher VENEY. How you doing today, Mr. VENEY?
I'm very well. How are you?
Good. Now, I know some people are like, Dad, why is she calling him Mr. VENEY? Why didn't she call him Christopher? Because I had the opportunity to meet you in a school space. And I'm laughing because you're wearing the PIF hat today. PIF is for the Piton International Film Festival. He is representing.
You know?
And this year, 2017, our theme is Empowering Our Youth. And that is what you do on the daily and have been doing for about 5 years.
Yes, ma'am.
So introduce yourself to the people.
All right. I am Chris VENEY, or Mr. VENEY, or the algebra.
Yes.
I currently teach mathematics at Southwest Leadership Academy Charter School. Again, been teaching for about 5 years. My first 3 years in the game, I spent in Detroit, Michigan.
Yes.
Love.
Give you a shout out to Detroit.
Yeah, what's up, Brightmoor?
That's
The
right.
313. Love you so much. Can't wait to see you again.
Because you know we are represented on Power 104.9 in Kokomo, Indiana. We are also, broadcast in Miami, South Beach, and also in Rockford, Illinois. So so I'm sure there's some Detroit people listening and watching
already
and
know.
saying, you know what, I know what he's talking about.
What up, though?
Okay. So go ahead. So you've been teaching for 5 years.
Currently teaching mathematics,
Yeah.
so 7th and 8th grade. Coach track and field, do a section of Algebra 1, do some slam poetry. I mean, a couple of different things
Yeah.
to keep it moving.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Well, we often talk about teaching and the role of teaching.
Sure.
And how your understanding has really changed in the last, I would say, really 6 months
Definitely.
about the power and influence of teaching. So let's talk about where it was, and then we're going to move into where it is now.
I think so much of my teaching was bound to, the things that folks told me. I ingested so many of those messages, be them true or false. I just took them because I was inexperienced, or at least I believed that I was inexperienced. I don't feel that way anymore. For example, a rubric. I would look at a rubric that was supposed to judge my effectiveness as a teacher. And I would sort of build my teacher self, that persona, around this document, but learn that document sort of derailed the relationship building that I was doing in my space.
Yes.
So I had to tell myself that it wasn't okay.
Yeah.
That in order for me to operate as a sacred teacher, I had to do away with those structures that didn't serve me.
Now, he just went and threw sacred teacher on the table. Like, that's a term we hear all the time. I just want to take a pause before we jump into and peel back that phrase, sacred teacher.
Sure.
So I started out as an elementary, early childhood, middle school teacher. And I know we have some teachers listening that, we're often told, pay attention to standards, pay attention to the core curriculum, pay attention to these things. And many times I didn't feel as though I could tap into my creativity because I was so busy being bound to how I was supposed to teach. But I found out that my greatest teaching actually took place outside of that quote-unquote box.
Definitely. I always start with, if you choose a side of students, of children, young people, you will always win. So I begin with talents, right? Okay. It's all about encouraging students to realize their talents. So I'm a math teacher, so it's my job to...
Hence the algebra.
All right.
That's right.
It's my job to make sure that I identify, the talents that already exist within these children. And whether you believe they're there or not, they certainly exist.
That's
I
right.
always say if anything is to manifest itself, it is to exist in an unmanifested state at first.
Oh, say it again. Say it again.
If anything is to manifest itself, it must first exist in an unmanifested state.
That's right. So a thought, a concept, an idea, that it starts in the quote-unquote intangible world, so we can say that it exists in spirit first,
Yes.
and then it moves into the physical.
Definitely.
Yes.
But those talents are there, and it's our job as sacred teachers to connect
Yes.
those talents to whatever it is that you have planned in the classroom. So I'm a math teacher. It's my goal to mix it up and make that happen.
Yes.
But once you realize the talent, you then give leverage to improving the talent.
Yeah.
You begin to improve, and then you can share. And once you share, you can expand the vision with the child.
That's beautiful.
And so it's about rising, right?
Yes.
High above life's obstacles. Rise and halo.
Oh,
Yeah, that's
right
what we
now.
do. That's what we do.
Yes. Well, I've heard you use this phrase, sacred teaching. We are going to take a quick commercial break, and when we come back, we are going to talk about sacred teaching.
Okay.
All right. We'll be back in a moment on Dr. Walls and Friends.
Throughout life, many of us feel a nudge or pull to develop a personal relationship with Spirit. In Live by the Spirit Inspired Thoughts, Volume 1, Dr. Wall shares experiences to help you develop, strengthen, and understand your personal relationship with Spirit. For more information about Live by the Spirit Inspired Thoughts Volume 1, go to www.askdrwalls.com. That's www.askdrwalls.com. God bless and live by the Spirit.
Okay. Welcome back to Dr. Walls and Friends. I am here with the AKA Algebra.
Yeah.
And that's with a UH on the end.
You know.
That's right. And you used a term in the last segment about being a sacred teacher. What does that mean?
Being a sacred teacher to me means recognizing that I am, but a small part of a very intricate, large puzzle.
Yeah.
I'm a servant. I'm here to work with these young people to empower them, as we said before. Sacred teaching to me is all about giving my voice to children, right? So understanding that I am here for a very specific reason, purpose, and I'm supposed to help these young people find their specific reason or purpose for living, for existing, to guide them first and foremost. It's my role in the movement. I'm a teacher, sure, but I'm really an activist.
Yeah.
Being a teacher is just the role that I play in that movement. And the role that I play in that movement right now.
That's right.
It's not permanent.
That's right.
But
But
that's
the
it.
sacred teacher part is permanent.
That is permanent.
Right.
I'll always be teaching.
Exactly.
Regardless of what stage that is, I'll always
right.
be delivering lessons. And I'll, as a teacher, always be a student.
Because that's what you're doing right now.
Always.
Right? And so it's understanding that. And that was something that I had to come to understand when I think about like Oprah Winfrey.
Yeah.
I definitely think of her as a sacred teacher.
Oh, yes, ma'am.
Right? So she's a vessel. It's this idea of being a vessel to deliver the knowledge and information that needs to be delivered, as well as the wisdom, because the wisdom is also teaching you when and how to use this information.
Sure.
And it's up to you then to discern when and where you need to use it within your own life. And so you're providing children in your case, but also in this case here, you're talking to people of all ages who are listening to you going, wow, that really makes sense. So you continue to be a teacher. And that was one thing that Oprah had said was she kept thinking that she had to be in the traditional classroom.
Yeah.
And then one day when she was on set, she looked up and she realized that was her classroom and she was being a teacher. And so that's what I too had to realize, that I'm always a teacher. My conversation is that, but I'm also a student, as you were saying, as well.
Yes.
And what's that like for you to know that it's the both and?
It's interesting. You definitely have to postpone ego. Right? You have to check that at the door. Any of that energy can exist in your space, especially if your message is to be flying through clear air, right? You can't pollute it with your own foolery nonsense.
That's right.
And teachers who don't recognize that tend to fail, unfortunately. And if you fail, so do the students. And that's not acceptable in our line of work. But it's knowing that every single day when you walk into that space and you greet children, you are certainly going to learn something.
Yeah.
These children oftentimes have far more lessons for me than I have for them.
Isn't that the truth?
I was just thinking about this today, actually, how my experience, even at SLA, it has been so healing for me. I get a chance to engage in these conversations with some of the most beautiful people I've ever met, and they're just 13 and 14 years old.
Yes.
And I see so many of my experiences in them and their ideas, their innovative ideas.
Yes.
They shed light on my past experiences, and they open up my heart in a way that allows it to heal.
Yes.
And we heal together. And I think that's the most beautiful part about teaching is the reciprocity, the
Yeah.
both and knowing that this is nonlinear.
That's right.
Come on, algebra.
Go ahead, Mr. Algebra. Teach
all right.
it.
It's traveling in so many different directions, but it's always coming back.
Yes.
And children who feel that, they know it, they recognize it, and they'll always seek out that vibration.
Yeah.
Right? That frequency.
Exactly.
And whenever they don't get it, they will always be able to tell the difference. You know? And that brings me to caviar versus fish sticks. I mean, this really important lesson that I learned as a first-year teacher in
Okay.
Detroit at
Yes.
my first charter school. Met this beautiful woman named Katina Mason. And she shared with me the lesson of discernment. So when you walk into a school, it's important that you understand the differences between caviar and fish sticks.
Okay.
Because if someone serves you a platter of food and tells you that it's caviar, but instead it's actually fish sticks,
Yes.
you will ingest that, perhaps even enjoy it,
Yes.
and walk around in the world believing that you know what caviar tastes like. And if you process that, I mean, that's your energy.
Yeah.
And that's what you're going to give out. A bunch of fish sticks.
That's
to
right.
folks thinking, right, that they're eating caviar.
How about that?
And that's unacceptable.
Yes.
And so we have to make sure that we understand this is what caviar is like.
Yes.
And this is what fish sticks.
Yes.
You know?
So getting that clarity, getting that understanding, making sure that what you're getting is authentic and real.
Yes. And students must be able to do that for themselves.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. And that's students of any age,
Yes.
right? Because if we talk about relationships, how many times are people thinking that they're getting caviar and they actually having fish sticks?
Listen, more times than enough.
Okay, more time. I know some people right now are like, "Oh my God, I'm with a fish stick."
Right,
okay, right, with a greasy fish stick.
And I think the beauty in that is also recognizing that sometimes you may be engaging in that fish stick foolery.
Not fish stick foolery.
Let's call it fish stick
You gonna
foolery.
make me drop a tambourine? Fish stick foolery. I think people may have to pull over for a moment.
They might?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. All right. Well, we're going to take a moment while y'all chuckle on that fish stick foolery. We're going to take a quick break and we'll be back in a moment on Dr. Walls and Friends.
Purpose, inspiration to add. Dr. Walls and Friends, where I find it. Dr. Walls and Friends. Dr. Walls and Friends, where I find it.
Welcome back to Dr. Walls and Friends, and I am still chuckling at fish stick foolery.
Okay.
Yes. Get the people a little bit more about some fish stick foolery.
You know, when I said that, I was really thinking about myself.
Okay.
Right, and how sometimes I've been, I've been a fish stick. And that's okay, as long as I
Yes.
recognize that now.
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
The
yeah.
power of discernment steps in.
Yeah.
I listen to those messages, take in those symbols, those signals, and learn, like, hold on, I know what caviar tastes like.
That's right.
I don't want to be a fish stick no more.
That's right.
Let's be caviar today.
And how about this? Let's be clear on who we're working with. Because I know, and I talk about this often when I do public speaking and sermons and different things, about my meantime man. How I was very clear that person was not going to be my husband.
Yeah.
I knew they were not a long-term boyfriend. I knew they were my meantime man. They were to take me from where I was to where I was going, and eventually they would be dropped because I knew my husband was coming.
Okay.
And I was clear, and he was my M&M. He was my meantime man. Okay, so I didn't try to get engaged in some fish stick foolery. I did not try to make him caviar when I knew he was a fish stick.
That's it.
And I think there's a lot of people, hims and hers, trying to make the significant person in their life significant when they really not.
That's it.
Right.
Listen. If you want to go there, we certainly can.
Well, we going right there because I
Okay,
think
then.
this is real talk.
It
you
is.
know, and these are now to the algebra. These are variables that make the equation not come to pass.
And it's not the standard form of the equation either. This
All
is
right.
more slope intercept, right? Because you
about
have the ups and the downs of those interactions.
Yes.
I'm also thinking transformation, right? So we have this point A on our coordinate grid, and we translate it.
Yes.
We move, and it was so interesting, the meantime.
Yes.
They used to get you to point A prime, but you don't have to stay there for long.
That's right.
That's so interesting to me, but yeah.
And this is the relation that a lot of times when people talk about school and education, and one of the complaints that children often make, and I know I made it all the time too,
Yeah.
what does this have to do with my real life? And especially when it came to algebra. You got 8x plus 7y equals n. What does all of that mean? And one day I happened to be in your class, and you
Yeah.
were like, these are the variables that occur in life. And I was like, oh my goodness, no, he didn't just explain the world to me in less than 30 seconds. That's why you the algebra.
That's it.
You know, but these are those variables in life when you look at all of the different equations and concepts in math and then apply them to life.
It's so interesting you say that because the new idea for a lesson comes to mind. I'm thinking of objectives already, but you know, in algebra, when you're solving an equation, sometimes there is one solution.
Yes.
Sometimes there are many solutions,
Yes.
infinitely many solutions, and sometimes there are none. And I speak to students about that often.
Yes.
Right, understanding when, you know, this is a good idea, listening to the voice again.
Yes.
Right, go with that. Go with, you know, in the direction that you're being blown.
That's right.
But also know when it's time to step away from something that doesn't serve you. There's no solution
Yes.
there.
Yes.
Right? So let's acknowledge that, learn from that sight,
Yes.
and move on.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right. And I know friends of the show, Jennifer Beatty, talks about being the point of difference.
Yes.
Right? And so as you're going along and you use the correct words, please, that slope, and then you get to that point of intersection, right? Where it gives you an opportunity to look which would be the next possible, what are the next possible points to go?
Yes.
And then what's the next best step?
And can we also talk about showing your work?
How about that? Talk about it.
Because that brings me to like journaling. So
Yes.
whenever I'm going through something in life, I love to write. And we speak about flipping voices all the time and how I'm writing and then who is that writing?
Yeah.
Because I'm reading it and I'm like, that don't really sound a lot like me. But that was definitely me.
Yeah.
Or someone speaking that was certainly connected to me. But
Yes.
right, when a student does work or they show their work and they don't seem to be finding the right answer,
Yes.
you encourage them to go back and check.
Yes.
You encourage them to sift through each line of their work to
That's
spot
right.
their mistake.
That's right.
Because it's okay to make a mistake as
It
long
is
as you can
okay.
catch it and learn from it.
That's right.
And those are the most powerful learning experiences.
Yeah.
When the children struggle, struggle productively, go back, analyze for the error, make the correction, guarantee not to make it again.
Exactly.
Like they're going to hit this hard.
Yes.
And they've created their own learning opportunity.
Yes.
Their own spark.
Yeah.
And I, sacred teacher, get to sit back and watch that happen.
That's right. And guide them in the process. And let them know that they're supported. So like you said, they don't have to struggle unnecessarily
Yeah.
and purposelessly, if that's
Right.
even a word, right?
But I feel it.
Right. So
Yeah.
you're struggling with a purpose, and it's not to stay in struggle, it is to rise above it. And so you have to show your work, which again is the importance of living and learning.
Yes, yes.
So you can see where I often talk about a mistake is actually miss, M-I-S-S, take, T-A-K-E. So you took something, it was a miss that you took, but you take it, you analyze it, and you go, next time let me take something different.
Warriors act, fools react. Right?
Okay.
You come across that obstacle. Don't pretend like you didn't think that was going to happen.
Right.
Or that perhaps like you anticipated that.
Right.
So prepare adequately for that.
Exactly.
Be a warrior and act.
How about that?
But don't, throw the pencil and paper down.
Right.
Don't toss up the hands to the sky.
Right. Right. Well, we're going to toss up and take a quick commercial break for a moment. All right. So we'll be back in a moment on Dr. Walls and Friends.
Throughout Throughout life, many of us feel a nudge or pull to develop a personal relationship with Spirit. In Live by the Spirit Inspired Thoughts, Volume 1, Dr. Walls shares experiences to help you develop, strengthen, and understand your personal relationship with Spirit. For more information about Live by the Spirit Inspired Thoughts Volume 1, go to www.askdrwalls.com. That's www.askdrwalls.com. God bless and live by the Spirit.
Welcome back to Dr. Walls and Friends with guest to the show, Mr. Christopher VENEY. Yes, yes. And so he has been really taking algebra and applying it to life. We have talked about Fishstick Foolery. We have talked about, been talking about really looking at your work and checking it, right? Mm-hmm. Looking at your life and checking it and see where you have veered off course. Mm-hmm. See where you need to come in and you analyze your work,
yes,
right? You analyze your life.
Mm-hmm.
You see where you made certain choices and whether they worked for you or against you, whether they've led you to the answer, whether they've led you to your greatest life, or whether they've led you to an error or led you away from your greatest life.
And there's something interesting in that too, because when you make that mistake, it's easy to judge yourself, and it's really easy, especially for young people.
Yes.
All people.
Yes.
To become the victim. Right? And it's important to encourage yourself and encourage those young folks.
Yes.
Not to judge themselves for the mistake they've made.
That's right.
And also not to feel victimized by that error.
How about that? And stay in a victim state, right? And so I recently read something that said FAIL actually stands for first attempt in learning. All right?
Yeah.
So you're not ever failing. It's just you've learned that is not the best choice. That's not the best answer. It's not the best way.
There is another path.
There is another path. Because part of life's learning is you learning your personal truth.
Yeah.
Right? And so we cannot adopt everyone's truth as our own personal truth. We cannot adopt everyone's story as our own personal story. And we have to learn to be strong enough to say that may be true for you, but that is not true for me.
Yeah. I mean, that's like the classic difference between personal truths and universal truths.
Correct.
And that's also something that sacred teachers must be privy to. You got to be hip to it.
Yeah.
You got to, when those students come into your space, you have to have that keen sense of awareness when students are beginning to adopt truths that don't belong to them.
Yes.
You have to sort of train them. Right. Yes. Train them in their own minds.
That's right.
They have fertile ground in their minds.
That's right.
And there's so many people, myself, themselves, their homes, their peers that are constantly throwing seeds in their mind.
Their music, the TV, the movies that they're watching.
They're being super saturated by these things.
Super saturated.
And the ones who choose, because I do believe it's a choice, they choose for their minds to be fertile for certain seeds.
Yes.
And the children who say, you know what? That's what's going on over there. Yeah, I want one of those seeds.
Right.
It's sure to grow.
Right.
It'll blossom.
Right.
Nice and strong, steady, and it won't die until you make the decision to say, my soil, my mind is not fertile for this seed.
How about that? Oh, I don't want that planet in me.
Right.
Right? Because it is sure to grow. But it's sure to grow a bunch of weeds.
Yes.
Which are known to then kill that which you want to actually grow and is going to be beneficial to your life.
It's like so much of teaching, it's about breaking spells.
Okay.
Right. I feel like so many of the children that have come into my space, teachers who have not been impeccable with their word, have cast spells onto my children.
Interesting.
Right?
Yes.
So I am a spell breaker.
All right now.
I don't think that I cast spells of my own onto children, but I teach them the ways of casting spells.
Yes, yes.
And so that they can be the ones who do the reversing. They can be the ones that rewrite the spell.
That's right.
And speak their personal truths into existence.
Yes.
That's what's most important for
Yeah.
me right now. And that's where I'm at right now in my practice.
And it's interesting that you said that because a lot of times people hear spells and they think witchcraft and things like that, but you're really just talking about almost a mantra or a statement that you're choosing to live by,
Yeah.
one that you're choosing to believe is true. And you're saying, no, wait, let's stop and really think about this. And then let's feed ourselves with a message that is going to be affirming and one that is going to help us grow.
It has to serve you.
Right.
I mean, period. So many teachers, they don't realize the weight of their word.
They do not.
You know, you can say
Teachers
some-
and parents.
Oh, for sure.
Right?
For sure.
Right. And it can be neighbors. It can be anybody who comes into contact with anybody. Because you never know what part of that person is open at that point in time.
It's so true.
And what tone is going to reverberate inside of someone's system.
Back to frequencies.
Yes.
I mean, the children are always listening.
That's right.
They're always in tune. They're not missing a single thing.
That's right.
Your action, your inaction, it all communicates a clear and direct message to them.
Both spoken and unspoken.
Yes, ma'am.
Right. And that's the thing, that we speak more non-verbally than we do verbally. And so for that person that says, well, they don't communicate with me. Oh, they communicate.
Oh, yes.
They just may not be using words that you can hear. But their body, their facial expressions, they're talking to you all the time.
That is so funny. Bringing it back to a piece earlier in our time together today, the rubrics.
Yes.
I was once asked by you, you know, you should begin developing your own rubric. If you don't think that these tools that are created to measure your ability as the teacher, if they don't work, you must create your own, right? And I thought that was beautiful for me. And it gave me a launch pad, a trampoline for my own creativity.
That's right.
And I knew the one thing that mattered most, how many kids are smiling?
Yeah.
When you walk into my classroom, the success of my teaching should be measured by how many children are smiling.
Yes, for sure. For sure. Well, you know what? We're going to leave people smiling today with all of these wonderful nuggets and variables that they can add into their life. Family, you will hear him again. You will see him again. As always, you can find me on AskDrWalls.com. Until we meet again, continue to live your greatest life.
Find it. Where is my passion, purpose? Where can I find it? Dr. Walls and friends, where I find it. Dr. Walls and friends. Dr. Walls and friends, where I find it. Dr. Walls and friends. I find passion, purpose, inspiration too. At Dr. Walls and friends, where I find it. Dr. Walls and friends. Dr. Walls and friends, where I find it.